What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most restrictive resources in Epic 7, and that is going to be Molagora. After this video, hopefully you'll know how to get all the different Molagora, as well as how to mola your units and be better about managing your units. So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and use your server, link down in the descriptions. As always, I like to split the video into different sections so you can skip around. First, we'll talk about where you can get Molagora, then we'll talk about general tips for Molagoring units and skills, and then we'll go into specific examples to try to help you go through it. Without further ado, let's get right into it. And why is this video so important? Well, as I mentioned, Molagora is extremely hard to come by, right? It's a resource that gates a lot of players and a very frustrating part of Epic 7 if you're not managing your Molagora properly. And I want you guys to learn from my mistakes and you not make the same mistakes I did. When I actually go through the examples, you'll see how wasteful I was. Granted, I'm not a full free-to-play player, but if I was, those mistakes would make me and set me back for weeks, right? So it's very important, very, very important. I cannot stress how important it is that you actually use your Molagora effectively and have a better idea on how to use it. But with that, let's actually talk about how can you get Molagora. What are the different places? Well, there's going to be a variety of different types of Molagora. First is going to be the recurring Molagora that you should be getting every single time, both the weekly as well as the bi-weekly. Then we'll have the Molagora that is one time only. That is Molagora that you'll get one time and you won't get again afterwards. And then lastly, but definitely not least, the very random Molagora chances. There are like two, but I'll still mention them just so you know that it exists. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So first, the most basic ones that you should literally be getting every single week is going to be the recurring weekly ones. So how you would get that is you can get 2 from the Transit Stone shop. You can get these Transit Stones by selling 3-star or 4-star heroes. I will sometimes sell 4-star heroes that are kind of useless, that don't have a good M1 counterpart. Or if I already have the unit 4-star SSS, then I'll definitely get that to get some Transit Stones. But you should try to get these every single time, as well as getting them from doing your dailies. The other one is going to be from the Conquest Point shop, where you can actually get it right here. As you see, if you're doing your arena weekly, you got the Molagora, boom, you got your weekly Molagora by just doing some arena. And then the other one, why it's so important to join a guild, and I cannot stress this enough, it is very important to you for joining a guild. Even if it's a very low level guild, the second you can join, you want to join because you're not only getting a lot of resources, you're also starting to get Molagora. And for early game players, this is very big because Molagora, while it may not be an issue for you right now, will 100% be an issue for you later, but you can get one every week from the Guild Wars shop. So this is the most general, most common, easiest to obtain weekly Molagora that you can get. But now let's talk about some of the reoccurring Molagora that you can actually get every 2 weeks or so, right? So with that, the first one is going to be from this event page right here that everyone should be trying to do every single day. I know I'm not the best about it, but again, I have that flexibility because I've been playing the game for so long. But you definitely want to try to get to at least the Molagora, and I usually do try as well to get to at least the Molagora. But essentially, the daily quests, if you're clearing them, you get a one-time reward. This event is every 3 weeks, so you can get 2 Molagora every 3 weeks by completing the daily missions. You get all that good stuff. You want to get to at least those Molagora. While it would be nice if you get them all the way, at least try to get to Molagora because, again, it is a limited resource. You want to make sure that you're getting your Molagoras. You want to make sure you're getting those Molas and using them, right? Very, very critical and very important that you actually try to get this one. Again, recurring 2 Molagoras every 3 weeks. Now, for some of the other recurring ones, there's things such as the Ottoman Tower, which you should be able to do. Very fun content. I always look forward, actually, to the tower. But you can also get 2 Molagora from here. This resets bi-weekly as well, so every 2 weeks you will get one. We also have the side story, which is another really great way for you to get Molagora, especially for big side stories like this. Now, before you roast me, I know I haven't actually done the storyline, but it is very, very important that you do, because storylines like this, you do get, again, every 2 weeks, you do get a new side story that you're able to do, and you're able to get Molagora, right? And sometimes it's weekly, depending on the schedule. Right now, we've been getting them almost weekly. We've been getting new ones, which is why I've kind of been slacking a little bit. But you definitely want to try to make sure that you are actually doing the side story, especially because there are also side story stages in there that are letting you get even more. So when you finish this, there's usually a Molagora stage in every single week of the side story, as well as for this one in particular. You can actually get it for clearing the quest. You get 4 nice little Molagora, right? So again, you do want to make sure you're doing these because that is a lot of Molagora you'd be missing out if you don't get it, and it is recurring, and you do want to do it every time that you're able to do it. As far as some other ones that are reoccurring that you do want to be doing every single time that you're able, to do is going to be from none other than Expeditions. Now, understand that this one may be harder for early game players, but there's a lot of players that are willing to help you actually clear these, but it's going to be from none other than Expedition, right? Expeditions, if you're actually clearing, you will get the reward of Molagora, and you actually get up to 6 Mola every single month. Now, if you're a newer player, you really do want to be doing these rewards, and it is okay to do level 1s. If anything, if you're a low level player, there are very much several high level players that near the end of the month will solo your level 1 expeditions to clear your stuff. And I usually go to level 1s because I usually laze around until the last week, and then everyone starts putting level 1s and starts clearing level 1s, right? So again, you should be able to clear the shop, and you want to clear the shop because that's another really good way to get your weekly Molagora in and be able to get all of that good stuff. But I believe that covers all the Molagora that can be obtained reoccurring. Those are the main locations where you would go and get it. Those are the recurring ones that you should be doing every day to try to get. But now let's talk about the one-time ones, because there's a lot of one-time ones and why you don't want to mismanage. So for Abyss, it's going to be a really good place to actually get Molagora. You get 20 Molagora in some stages, which is a massive windfall. And as you see here in the other ones, you're not getting that many, right? Like here, by clearing this one Abyss stage, I get as much Molagora as I'm going to get in a month, right? So this Molagora, 10 Mola, that's a lot of Mola, right? That's like 2-3 weeks worth of Molagora, and you get way more in other stages. So it's very important that for these one-time Molagora, you are making sure that you are using them effectively, because you're not going to be getting these massive windfalls that much more often, right? So you want to make sure for this one-time ones, you do make sure you're using them well. The other place where you can actually get a lot of Molagora is going to be from Adventure after episode 1 easy mode, right? For the adventures and the side story adventures, you can actually get big one-time Molagora every time you clear an adventure all the way with 3 stars. But again, these initial stages don't have it because it's very early on. They do give you some, but the big ones is like, for example, for level 2, you get about, you get some Mola. You get like 14 Mola. You do want to get it, right? It's something. You want to definitely be getting them. They're going to be one-time thing, but when you're going through the storyline for the first time, especially the adventure, you can get quite a few Molagora from this. So you definitely want to manage that Molagora well early on, and a lot of people I know still have those banks. Now, for the Molagora that is more RNG, but that you can still definitely potentially get, we have 2 places where you can actually get it, and that's going to be from Labyrinth and from the World Boss, right? So for the Labyrinth, there's a little shop. It's not recommended because artifact charms are just so much better. But if you're someone that really wants Molagora and likes to gamble a little bit, I definitely have done it. And if you definitely want like gamble on some Galaxy bookmarks, this is definitely a good thing that you can do, because you can actually get Galaxy bookmarks this way and get a little bit more, ML summons to feed the gacha addiction. But here, if you actually go, there's a little chest that does offer Molagora. It is completely random. It is, I believe it's once a week that you can buy this. It might be once a day. I have to double check on that, but again, it does offer Molagora, Gold Chances Stones, Galaxy, but it also does offer things like Gold, which is not that great, right? So definitely something that can either be amazing or not so great. What most people recommend for you to get is actually going to be this epic artifact charm, right? Rather than the random Molagora or the random chance at a Molagora. So that one is going to be what most people will recommend, but again, if you're someone that likes to gamble and you want a little bit more resources and like to have fun, by all means, you can definitely get that there. And last but not least, I mentioned the World Boss is really inconsistent, but I will get at least 1 Molagora a month from World Boss. So you do want to make sure that you're doing your World Boss every day. Again, very important that you're in a guild that can actually do things, that has good support, so you're able to get your Molagora, but you can actually get it from World Boss every single day. So that's going to cover all the places you get Molagora. Typically, once you're out of that initial Molagora boost from those one time, from the Abyss, from the adventure stages, and you're only relying on the reoccurring, you will get enough Molagora about to be able to fully plus 15 a unit in a month, give or take, right? It's usually a little bit less than to plus 15 a unit, but it's pretty close, and you can get most of the skills functionally, right? But 1 unit a month, Smilegate releases about 2 to 3 units a month, right? So again, this is where the part where actually managing your Molagora is going to come into play, which is going to be right in the next section. All right, so the next section that we are going to be talking about for Molagora is general tips with using Molagora, because I have definitely wasted a lot, and I want you guys to learn from my mistakes, from someone that's been playing the game a long time. The biggest thing is make sure the unit you're Molagoring is a unit you're going to be using long term, right? For example, let's take a look at my Pavel. I never used or tested Pavel, right? I didn't know if I liked him, but I just knew I liked his design, and I blew Molagora, and it ended up not fitting any of my teams. And he's just sitting here wasting so much Molagora that could have gone to units that I actually care about, that I need to Molagora because they have skills that are very critical and I want to use them. So me doing this is very, very wasteful. And there's a lot of units in my account that fall in this category. There are things like Cecilia that I never really used, never really found a place for her, and I gave her all this Molagora that's just being completely wasted, right? So whenever you have a surplus, don't just blow your Molagora, right? Just because you have a surplus doesn't mean you should be blowing through the Molagora and just using the Molagora like it's nothing, because it is a very scarce resource. Test the unit, make sure you like how they function, and then actually commit to building the unit. The other thing is, try to focus on one unit at a time. Why do I say this? There are so many units on my account, and there are so many fights I've lost because I have not focused on my units. Let's take a look, for example, at my Samurai Seria. I do use Samurai Seria, but I didn't finish Molagoring her because I got caught up Molagoring something else, right? And me skipping and going around makes it so I have a lot of units that are not to their fullest potential, and it does show when I actually play RTA because I don't have optimized units, and I do lose because of that quite often, right? Even someone like Mercedes, right? My Mercedes, I should have focused on her. I should have finished her. I use her a lot, but because I'm jumping around all these different places and I don't have a plan for how I'm using my Molagora, you see a lot of my units on my account that are just wasting Molagora. See, even things like Police, I never quite finish her, and I'm already working on someone else like Sahak. So the biggest thing I can give you the Molagora is actually finish through what you're trying to do for the unit. Make sure you're getting to the unit to a Molagora point that is good for you. Don't just bounce around everywhere like crazy, and then you're not gonna ever finish the units that you really need to do. So again, the biggest tip I can give you, have a plan, be focused on it, make sure the unit you're using is a unit you're going to want. But now that we know those general tips, let's actually go to more specific to what type of units should you be prioritizing. And the two big type of units and skills that you should be prioritizing are going to be effect skills, skills that are necessary for the unit to function, and lastly, DPS skills. So start with the last one, the DPS type units. As you guys know, Epic 7, the way that you clear any content is by you killing, right? It's by you defeating, right? And to do that, what do you need? Damage. So the number one priority is going to be damage dealing units, DPS skills. So for example, someone like Violet, this is a skill that I use a lot. You need to make sure that his damage skills are maxed out, because the whole role of Violet as a DPS is to do what? DPS. If he doesn't have these Molagora skills maxed out, you're missing out on a lot of damage, and he's not going to be doing his job as well as he could be. So you want to make sure that your DPS units have their DPS skills maxed out. Let's take, for example, I'm my Spectre Tenebria, who again is one of my most used units. If we look at her, again, plus 15. Why? Every single skill for her is a DPS skill that she needs to do her job properly, right? And even things for Tamaluluka, again, her DPS skills are maxed out, although the CR push wasn't as important to me because it's not something I'm particularly using, but this second part will fall into the functional category, which we'll talk about in a second. Again, DPS skills on DPS heroes are very, very important for you to max out, right? When we look at someone like Belian, if you see here, I didn't put many on the S2 and S3. Why? Well, this buff is really nice, and I do eventually one day will want to do it, especially because I really like Belian. I will want to max this out one day. It is not the end of the world if I don't max it right now, but there's one, she is trying to do damage. I max this out immediately, because this is what's actually bringing me to the game, right? Something like the cooldown doesn't really show up as often. Something like this doesn't show up as often. I rather Molagora other DPS heroes than finish off these skills that never really come into play, right? So anything that's a DPS hero, you want to make sure that they have their DPS skills maxed out. You want to be doing damage, right? So for example, my Charlotte, this is an example of me not focusing, right? When Charlotte was really good, I finished the S1 for the damage, but I should have also finished the S3. That's a huge mistake on my part because, again, I should have focused, right? That's the part of me not focusing. But as a DPS hero, she needs to have this S3 maxed out. I have lost Guild Wars because this is not Molagoran, even though she's a DPS hero. That's priority. Now, the second part to priority is going to be functional use units. There are units that just don't function without Molagoras on their skill. And that's a good example is someone like Fawn Cecilia. Functional Molagoring depends unit to unit, but for example, Fawn Cecilia, without her barrier, she's not that good, right? If her barrier is not strong, she's kind of useless, right? So her barrier is a skill you want to max out as soon as possible because it's core to her kit. She needs the skill to function. Same thing with the S1. This is a skill I need to max out, and I have lost. I cannot tell you how many games I've lost because of the Molagora, this skill, because it's part of the way she functions. She needs to land provokes in order to do her job as a tank disruptor. If she doesn't have this maxed out, she can't do her job reliably. So me maxing out the skill up to the effect resistance is very important. Can I stop after here? Absolutely. I'm not particularly using Fallen Cecilia to do damage. Well, it would be nice to have her plus 15 because there are a lot of times where I do rely on Fallen Cecilia to finish off units. It's not the end of the world if I don't get this damage on my non-DPS hero, but it is critical that I get this effect resistance, effect chance on her to make her function properly, right? And that's the type of things that you really need to look for. Functional type kits, right? Another unit would be someone like Inferno Kawazu, right? Well, like Inferno Kawazu, his whole job is to use this S3 to execute. If he doesn't have this skill maxed out and he misses the burns, he's useless, right? It's a functional skill. The S2 doesn't matter. This was just because I like him. This is me wasting Molagora. This is me being bad at the game, right? Wasting Molagora on something I don't need, right? The S1, again, another functional one. How's he doing damage? By doing S1s. How's he going to do that? He needs this maxed out, right? To actually land the burns, because that's the way he does damage, right? So that's the type of things you want to think of for functional type units. And there's a lot of different heroes that are functional based, that need skills to function, right? For example, someone like Samurai Syria, with all this attack, she's not going to do a lot, right? She needs a skill maxed out. That's a functional necessary skill for Samurai Syria. That's high priority. Someone like Rem, if Rem doesn't trigger her counterattack, what is she doing, right? It's a functionally important skill to actually max out. This skill, again, she's a DPS hero. I should be maxing these skills out. I should be getting the effect chance on this. That's another me not focusing on Molagoring units that I'm using a lot. But again, that's a mistake on my part. Hopefully you're able to learn from me. But again, that's a priority order. Damage skills and functionally important skills are the highest priority for your hero. The next part, and even for things like control heroes, things like a Tywin, that's another functional category. You need to have these effect chances for you to be able to function as a hero. And that's the other one for the effect chances. That's going to be Mola priority, right? For those type of skills, your DPS heroes, your functional necessary skills, and then the rest is completely up to you, right? So the rest is going to be for what you want, right? So for example, if you already got your DPSs, right? Like you got your Charlotte maxed out, that's great. She's a DPS hero. She's a priority. If you have someone, for example, like Kral, right? He only really needs the cooldown reduction on this skill, the cooldown reduction on this skill, and the effect chance on this skill to function properly as a tank, right? He doesn't need the rest of the damage. The other part comes from heroes that you're using a lot, and that's the second priority. If you're using a hero all the time, you should consider Molagoring that hero, right? So that's the next priority list. Is going to be heroes that you're using all the time. So for example, someone like Fallen Cecilia, I can't tell you how many games I actually use Fallen Cecilia, and having that extra damage, it will give me a slight edge of my opponent. So I really do want to Molagora her skills because I'm using that unit all the freaking time. So that's going to be the priority order for those types of heroes. And now let's go to some more specific examples. So now that we talked about skill priority and actual Molagora priority, let me give you some examples of units that as you're approaching Molagoring. So if you're newer or you're getting new units, what should you be prioritizing? If it's a DPS hero that you're going to be using a lot, let's take a look at him. For example, right? Let's take a look at Sahak, right? Let's say you just got Sahak and you want to use him. The first thing you'll do if you want to use him is, of course, you need to get him to at least a level that he can do damage, right? You can 6-star him, you can max him out, Catalyst, you know, you can always farm those. You get them out, you get them there, and you test them first. You want to see, in what teams can I use him, right? Let's say you tested it, you're like, man, I love Sahak, right? He's just not doing that much damage because he's not skilled up. It's time for you to Molagora Sahak, right? So you're like, all right, time to Molagora Sahak. Well, he's a DPS hero. So first, what's his DPS skill that he's using primarily? And what's a critical to his kit? Well, it's going to be the S3, right? This is how he's going to be doing his damage. He needs to have this skill fully Molagored out for it to work as you intend it to work, right? So this skill, #1 priority. That's the main way he's going to be doing his damage. Is the main way he's going to be winning the games for you. Then the second skill that you may want to take a look at is the S1. You know, you've been testing him more. You finish Molagoring this skill. You go back to the training grounds. You start playing with him. You're like, man, there's a lot of situations where my Sahak is doing S1, right? And he's not killing. Well, now you know you need to max out this skill as well because he's a DPS hero. And you're like, okay, that's pretty good. Then you look at his S2 and you're like, this skill, it's a little weird. It gives him barrier. But I'm not really having a trouble with him staying alive. And I feel like I never really used this skill, right? And if you feel that way, you don't need to Molagora it, and you would actually be right to not need to Molagora this skill to plus 15, right? Especially if you have a unit that you need to Molagora. Let's say, for example, you have Sahak as well as Polides. At this point, you finished Sahak. If you finish the S1 and S3, you don't have to enhance the S2. It is nice to have a bigger barrier, but it's not functional to his kit. And if you don't need it as you're testing it, you're not losing games because of that barrier, then you're like, okay, I don't need it anymore, right? It functions as I need it. Right? It doesn't reduce the cooldown, right? The barrier strength, whatever. So you can just leave him there as a plus 10 hero, and you're done, right? You can be plus 10. Here's a Hawk, for the most part, pretty good, right? He'll do his job very well, and that will save you a lot of Molagora to actually use on someone else. Let's say, for example, your Polides. So when you go to Polides, right? If you're building at the same time, you go through the same process, right? You're going, this skill gives me more damage on S2. I'm noticing I need this skill a lot to actually finish enemies because it's actually what's threatening the opponent, right? I need to Molagora this. And then I really want her to land these debuffs. I need to Molagora this as well, and I need it to do damage. So you would Molagora these S2 and S3, and then you would see the S1. You're like, well, I never really used the S1, but I do want it to have a chance to stun for those fringe scenarios. Then you would actually get it to at least here. And then if you wanted to do more damage and you feel yourself using Soulburn a lot on Polides, you would go ahead and plus 15er. And Polides is a type of unit you do end up plus 15ing, because every single skill for this unit is necessary for her to function. So you eventually would end up plus 15ing your Polides. Here's a Hawk, you will leave a plus 10. And then let's say at the same time you're working on someone like your let's look at another knight. Who's another knight that we can use? Right, let's say you're working on someone like your Troublemaker cross set. Right, for Troublemaker set, what do you get? Well, for this one, this skill is critical for him to function. If you don't have this maxed out, you're missing out on a big part of why you would ever use T-Cross set, right? So you would want to max out the skill because it's critical to the character. Then you look at the S1. The biggest thing, you can stop at plus 5, right? You only need the effect chance, right? Once you get the effect chance to land the stun, you're done. He doesn't need the damage. You know, he's not a DPS, right? So you can get him to plus 5, get the effect chance. He's a tank. He doesn't need that skill. You would not Molagora that skill. And then this skill, there are a lot of situations where he'll stay alive for a long time, where you also would want to max his skill out. So again, he would be someone that would be okay at a plus 13, which is still pretty high, but you're still saving a lot of Molagora here by not maxing these two skills out. Of course, if you use T-Corset a lot and you don't have any other units you're working on, then you would go ahead and finish that skill off. So that's usually what you want to do with Molagora, and that's the process you want to go through when you're thinking about these different units. For even things like Lilius, again, if you're not using for the damage, you would have to make all those decisions on your own, and it varies from unit to unit. But ultimately, that's a process you want to go through. What is the unit trying to do? What Molagora level do I need that unit to have in order for them to do the job that I expected them to? And then you can go through and actually finish off what you want. A perfect example of this is Fairy Tale Tenebria. For Fairy Tale Tenebria, she's not really there to do damage. And all these other skills, and this skill, honestly, there's very few scenarios where this really comes into play. So for the most part, you can have her at this level, and you have a perfectly functional Fairy Tale Tenebria, right? So again, if you're someone that's not thinking this through, and you're like, oh, I just want to Molagora everything, you're going to end up wasting a lot of Molagora, and you're not going to be able to actually max out the critical skills for the heroes that really need it. So again, of course, if you really use Fairy Tale Tenebria, and you want to pimp her out, you want to make her better, then of course you can go ahead and actually get the S2 damage, you can get the S3 damage, so she can actually be like a more aggressive unit and actually work better, but that's usually how Mola priority works. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed and this helps you understand Molagora and Molagora priorities the way you want to think about it. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure you know what units you're using on. Make sure you have an idea of what you want the unit to do and know how much you use a particular unit. And that will hopefully help you use your Molagora and make you not have Molagora issues. But that's all I have for you guys today, and I will see you next time. Peace.